In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. The Iron Curtain had fallen. As President Gorbachev handed power over to his successor Boris Yeltsin, North Korea lost its most important ally that had sustained it for nearly half a century. Its nuclear bomb development plans took a hit.
사회주의권이 붕괴되는 과정에서 엄청난 충격을 받았다. 그것은 결국 북한이 독자적으로 자신들의 체제 유지를 위해서 뭔가를 해야 되는 그 상황에서 핵이라고 하는 것이 북한을 지켜줄 수 있는 보검이다. 북한식 표현을 하면 그런 식으로 북한은 받아들이고 있는 것이고, 또 하나는 가다피나 또는 후세인의 말로를 보면서 또 우크라이나 사태를 보면서 자신들이 군사적인 차원에서 핵을 보유하지 않으면 김정은 위원장도 또는 북한 체제도 굉장히 위태롭거나 붕괴될 수밖에 없다는 그런 위기의식 속에서 핵을 갖게 되는.
Unexpectedly, the Soviet collapse provided North Korea with a possible windfall.
러시아로 넘어가는 이 과정에서 러시아가 그들을 제대로 관리하지 못하는 이런 상황에서 그들의 그런 기술적인 부분이 북한으로 넘어왔을 가능성도 일부 배제할 수는 없다고 봅니다.
The warning bells were ringing internationally about North Korea's nuclear ambitions.
But in 1991 March, there was an academic paper published in the United States regarding North Korea's nuclear weapon program. The title was North Korea, the next nuclear nightmare. Before then, general public didn't know what's happening in North Korea.
This paper revealed the extent of North Korea's secretive nuclear program to the world. Despite also being a signatory to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, North Korea had continued to develop its nuclear arsenal.
If you sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, within a couple of years, you're supposed to make a declaration about your nuclear program and then let the inspectors come in and verify that declaration. It never happened. And so the United States was complaining more. Using satellite imagery analysis, again, the United States saw the construction of a plutonium separation plant, a reprocessing plant, and became more alarmed that you had a reactor making plutonium, you'd have a facility separating plutonium, and once it's separated, it could be used in nuclear weapons.
North Korea did allow the International Atomic Energy Agency in to inspect its nuclear facility, but blocked access to crucial areas of the plant.
Our position to that issue is clear and unchanged. DPRK will never allow inspection on two sites.
What they did was essentially decide to hide things from the inspectors and try to disguise that they had separated more plutonium than they declared. They probably had a nuclear weapons program that was very active, and the IA saw through it and challenged North Korea.
In March 1993, North Korea withdrew itself from the Non-Proliferation Treaty.
It was a very defining moment in the sense that this was the first nuclear power that broke off from Non-Proliferation Treaty and demonstrated its defiance to the world. Asia was not on the forefront of the international politics at the time, but this event was significant in this sense, purely from the nuclear world order that here is another nuclear-armed country now emerging in a very disturbed region in the world.
Despite the death of North Korea's founder, Kim Il-sung, in 1994, the development of its nuclear program intensified under its new leader, Kim Jong-il.
당과 정부 간부들과 함께 위대한 수령 김일성 동지의 영전에 깊은 애도의 뜻을 표하시고 영구를 돌아보셨습니다.
North Korea had been building its own ballistic missiles when Pakistan came knocking. It used this relationship to get in the door of the Pakistani nuclear program.
And at that time, India was conducting a lot of ballistic missile tests. So the Pakistanis reached out to China and North Korea to get the ballistic missile technology, which the North Koreans were very willing to sell on a very cheap price. I think it was barely 250 million.
North Korea knew that Pakistan had the latest centrifuge technology to refine highly enriched uranium.
So you had centrifuge experts working on learning from the North Koreans how to make sensitive components of the No-Dong missile. And the North Koreans said, well, why don't you teach us how to make centrifuges? And they agreed to do that. And so that's really how it got started.
A key player in Pakistan's nuclear program was Abdul Qadir Khan, the controversial father of Pakistan's nuclear bomb. A.Q. Khan was much more than just a scientist. He gained international notoriety by secretly developing an international network that trafficked in nuclear secrets.
This network involved about 8 to 10 other countries whose top businessmen had equal interest and equal money business interest in their own empire respectively, whether it was in Netherlands or in South Africa or in Germany or Britain, Malaysia and elsewhere.
A.Q. Khan gave North Korea centrifuge technology to refine uranium, the primary ingredient that fuels a nuclear explosion. With the cooperation in full swing, scientists were flying between both countries, exchanging information and teaching one another. They placed orders for super-strong steel, ball bearings, and metal tubes. Individually innocent items, but put together, they would create the world's most devastating weapon. North Korea shipped these items through a number of intermediaries to conceal their final destination. But intelligence agencies began to catch on.
So you had tensions really rising, or fears of a military strike more than a nuclear strike. I don't think the U.S. would have used nuclear weapons.
With the risk of war in the air, North Korea struck a deal. It agreed to freeze its nuclear weapons program. In exchange, the United States, South Korea, and Japan agreed to supply Pyongyang with 2 light-water nuclear reactors. These were suitable for producing power, but not nuclear weapons. Despite signing the deal, North Korea continued to develop its bomb, in secret.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will
In January 2001, President George W. Bush was elected into office. He had North Korea firmly in his sights as a threat.
So help me God.
So help me God. North Korea is a regime arming with missiles and weapons of mass destruction while starving its citizens. States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world. By seeking weapons of mass destruction, these regimes pose a grave and growing danger.
이것은 사실상 우리에 대한 선전포고나 다름이 없다.
But President Bush's focus was on a different dictator, Saddam Hussein. North Korea quietly continued its nuclear weapons program, an initiative that was to have a deadly impact on its Asian neighbors. A leaked letter between A.Q. Khan and North Korean officials in 1998 was a bombshell. It revealed that Pakistani officials were secretly exchanging nuclear technology in return for money and jewels.
AQ Khan consistently, in my presence and many times, assured the highest leadership in the military that the technicians who are only training the Pakistanis on the missile technology and the centrifuge location is way away and they're not involved in that at all. And AQ Khan was such a personality that when he assures the highest leadership in the country, president, prime minister, and the military leadership, everybody would believe him. But he was lying.
The Pakistani government launched an investigation into AQ Khan's activities. While many officials were thought to be involved, AQ Khan took all the blame, and then, surprisingly, was pardoned. In a political play, North Korea invited a number of scientists to visit its Yongbyon nuclear facility.
Well, one is its propaganda value. I mean, that pure and simple, they had a point to make. The North Koreans wanted to establish and settle a debate that was raging internationally, and you had countries like Japan and South Korea saying, they can't build a bomb.
Siegfried Hecker was one of the invited scientists.
They were in a conference room and they brought in a red metal box, opened that up, and inside was a white wooden box with a slide off top. They opened that up, and the inside were 2 glass jars, sort of like jelly jars, with a screw-on lid, tightly taped. And they said, this first one has 150 grams of oxalate, plutonium oxalate powder, certain chemical form of plutonium. The second jar, they said, well, that's the product. That's plutonium metal in this jar. And they said it's 200 grams of plutonium metal.
Many people were left scratching their heads, wondering how North Korea could have produced enough material to make a nuclear bomb.
We are aggressively pursuing another dangerous source of proliferation. Black market operatives who sell equipment and expertise related to weapons of mass destruction.
Then,
온 나라와 전체 인민이 사회주의에 강성되고 건설해서 일대 비약을 창조해 나가는 벅찬 시기에
To get a successful nuclear explosion test requires a lot of technical ability. It was not a surprise to the Pakistanis in the sense because they did not dismiss North Korea's technical ability as the other countries would have done so.
After 15 or 16 years, our diplomatic efforts to deter North Korea from conducting this nuclear test was finally done. It was nothing else than just frustration and agony.
the world reacted by imposing economic sanctions on North Korea.
한 4억 5,400만 불인데 7월 미사일 발사 이후에 그것이 지금 80% 정도가 중단돼 있는 겁니다. 그리고 이 중단이 이제 지속된다는 말씀을 드렸습니다. 그래서 이 정도의 그 규모라는 것은 다른 어떤 나라가 취한 조치보다도 매우 강력한 것이다.
We think it's very important for the North Koreans to come back to the table. There's a six-party talk framework that is hopeful and positive for them. It requires them to make some difficult decisions, and of course one of them is to get rid of their nuclear arsenal.
It would be seen as such a terrible event that President Bush would take very sharp action. Instead, he did almost nothing. He issued a kind of a condemnation, but kind of said, look, as long as if you spread fissile material or nuclear explosive material or nuclear weapons, then you're in real trouble.